Hi everyone, and welcome to another training video for the calendar forms. In this video, we're going to go through the forms that you'll fill out if you have revisions to your calendars throughout the school year. The first one we're going to go through is going to be the emergency closures form, and then second we'll go through just the general revision form. So we'll start here on our website. If you go to sde.idaho.gov, this is the landing page that you'll come up on. If you scroll down to the bottom, go to our public school finance button. In here is where you'll find all of our resources, and hopefully you've already watched the first video, so I'm going to blow through this pretty quickly, but as always, our contact information is going to be in the staff button, so you can have the current contacts if you ever need to ask us questions. Here on our school finance page is where you'll find all of the calendar resources. We'll scroll down to this calendar resources area in this drop down. In our last video, we covered the calendar manual, the calendar memo, and the instructional calendar form template. And in this one, we're going to go over the revision form. So the first one we're going to go through is the certificate of closure form. Okay, here is our emergency closure form. You're going to use this form whenever you have a closure due to weather, facility failure, illnesses, those kinds of things. And you'll be submitting this to the SDE along with your board minutes. But one important thing to note before we get started here on this form is that these closure certificates should be submitted to the SDE within 3 school days of your closure. This is so that when we review your instructional hours as well as your IC calendars, we just get notes to you as quickly as possible in case there's any adjustments needing to be made. When we receive these forms, we review them for those 2 reasons. So for example, if you submitted your closure, in January, after the holidays, there's a bunch of snow closures typically. And let's say you submit your form, but you don't submit it until February when you have the board minutes. Maybe we had to look at your instructional hours and we noticed that you're actually under the minimum required hours by Idaho code. That doesn't give you a lot of time in the rest of the school year to make up that time. So it is really important that we get these forms sooner rather than later, so that if something like that does happen, you have a little bit more time to work with to adjust your school calendars so that by the end of the year, you're still meeting that minimum hours requirement. The same thing goes for your IC calendars as well. That affects your attendance and enrollment data. So the sooner that you get that in, the sooner we can get those corrected and make sure that all of your funding is squared away as well. So both our attendance and enrollment financial specialist and our calendars specialist will be reviewing these for you. So with that being said, let's go ahead and get started on this form. As usual, we're going to go into this header first and make sure that we're filling out all of the tan boxes throughout the form. So the first one is going to be selecting our district or charter name. It'll be a drop-down list just like your instructional hours calendar. And you'll find yours, it's alphabetical. I'm gonna go ahead and choose my example here at the bottom, and it will automatically populate your IFARMS number. Let's say I was West Jefferson District, it'll populate 253. Okay, once you have that ready to go, next you're gonna wanna fill in your dates of closure. These should be individual certificates. So let's say I closed once in December and I have another closure in February. They should be 2 separate forms. We don't want to keep updating this form and adding dates onto it throughout the year. There should be 1 form per closure just so that we keep them separate and we know that we're getting the correct documentation for each one. So for my example, I'm going to say that we close February 14th and February 15th. Okay, if they're consecutive dates, you can group them, but I wouldn't put a January closure with the February closure, for example, unless they were consecutive. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down. So our first step, once we get our header filled in, is that we are going to complete the table below. We try to align this form to match your instructional hours calendar as much as possible so that when we review these, it just makes it a little bit more smooth of a process to review. So we'll go ahead and go through this table 1 column at a time. So keep in mind for my example that we're using February 14th and 15th here. So there's a couple different ways I can do this, and there are a couple examples here that we have included in the template, so you can reference them if you need to. But let's say February 15th, we had 2 consecutive snow days. So we can go ahead and just say February 14th through the 15th. And since it was a snow day, we're going to go ahead and choose our cause of closure. We have facility failure, funeral, weather, welfare concerns, widespread sickness, and other. I'm going to go ahead and pick weather. And next we're going to want to list the building numbers affected. The note up here says list the building numbers affected by the revision. If it's a district-wide revision, you can enter all, or if it applies to most buildings, you can enter all except. So for example, let's say my district has 5 different buildings and only 2 of them closed. I would just list the 2 buildings that closed and I would leave the rest off. Or let's say all of them close except one of them. I can say all except building 100. So you can customize this however you want, or if it was a district or charter-wide closure, you can just simply say all. I'm going to go ahead and say all. And same things when we list our grades served in the next column is you can enter all if it's all of your grades or specify which ones. So I'm going to go ahead and say all. And next I get to choose what type of closure, if this is a full day or a partial day closure. For both of my snow days, it was a full day, so I'm going to go ahead and choose that option from the drop-down menu. And next, this part's really important, listing your hours and minutes per day. If you chose that the full day, if you chose the full day closure, you do not need to fill these in, because what that's going to tell us when we review these forms is that all district-wide or all charter-wide, that all of these days were closed, so we can just grade them out in your templates. Otherwise, if I were to choose a partial day closure, I would want to fill this out because I would want to know how much time was taken away from their hours of instruction per day. Now, since these are consecutive days, I just want to make it very clear that this is not your total time missed. This is your time missed per day. So if each of these days I had a 2-hour late start because of the snow, instead of putting 4 hours for the 2 days, I would put 2 here, because what that will tell me is for both of these days, 2 hours were missed. And it's going to automatically calculate our decimal equivalent here so that it goes into our instructional hours forms easier. And if you want to, you can add comments. They're definitely not expected. The only time that this part is not optional is if you choose your cause of closure to be other. If it's none of these reasons within Idaho code, hit other and go ahead and put in your comments so that we can make note of your closure. Okay, once that is done, we're going to scroll down a little bit more. And you are going to next adjust your IC calendars. You're going to want to update your student information system to identify the closure dates that you listed in this certificate. Your instructional hours calendars and your IC calendars are completely separate, and they both do need to get updated. So do not forget this step. It's going to be very critical for your attendance and enrollment data. Next, they're going to want to certify this closure. This will be done by your superintendent or charter administrator. They'll need to certify the cause and duration of each incident of emergency closure and certify that the information is accurate, and if requested, they can provide detail to document the reported information. It's really important that this step gets done very last after this form has been checked. Once they sign, this document is final and it'll lock your editing ability, so be very careful to do this very last. If you have any issues with this, definitely let us know, but just keep that in mind as you're doing this form. And last but not least, this is just a reminder that you're going to want to submit this form and follow up with your school board minutes later. So again, you'll want to submit this immediately as soon as possible, and the contact information to do so will be down here. And just make sure that you keep this in Excel format. Don't transfer it into a PDF or anything like that when you send it to us. And after your board approves your closure, submit a copy of the board minutes approving the closure to this contact as well, and we'll clump them together once we receive both. And just to highlight, make sure that the board minutes include the detail of the date, duration, and reason for the closure that you're reporting in this certificate. More often than not, we'll receive board minutes that don't discuss the closure, and so we typically will have to follow up to get more specific information. So make sure that those details are included in your board minutes so that that'll just eliminate one more step for you. Of course, if you have any questions with the certificate of closure, the contact information will be at the bottom, and this is also who you will submit the closure forms to. This might change year to year, so just keep tabs on what's in the bottom right corner of your forms, both for this and your instructional hours calendar. And let's go ahead and get into the other revision form that we have that is for just general revisions, not for closures. So first, let's go back to our website here on the school finance page. We just did the certificate of closure form. And next, we're going to cover this instructional calendar revision form. All right. This form is extremely similar to the closure certificate. There's just some minor differences. Again, in this one, this is meant for any general revisions that you have throughout the school year. If you change your last day, or maybe you had a staff development day, but you need to change it because you are short on hours after a closure, so you're going to change it to a full day of instruction. Those kinds of changes will be logged here and submitted to us. So again, you're going to complete your header by first selecting your district and your district or charter name. I'm going to go ahead and scroll down to my example again. So I'm example 100. And again, just a note that we're going to complete all of our tan cells, and that if this is actually a closure, to submit on the certificate of closure form. This is just a reminder so you don't get the two forms mixed up. I know they look very similar. But the first is we're going to describe the revisions needed. Just be as clear as you can and concise with these comments so that we have as much information as possible for these revisions, and we can just log them into your calendars easily. So similar to your closure form, first you're going to list your building numbers affected. Again, if it's all of them, you can put all. If it's all except one building or two buildings, you can put that here, or you can just list them individually. Whatever makes sense and takes up the least amount of space for you, just to make it clear. And then next is your grade served. Again, you can put all, a certain grade grouping, all except, whatever suits the need for your form. And then lastly, you're just going to put in your comments. Like I said, this can be, where you're going to delay your first day of school to August 22nd, or maybe you're going to change a staff development day on October 13th to a regular day, which is going to be 6 hours and 15 minutes. Or we can change the last day for seniors to May 23rd and put their hours and minutes there. Whatever comments you can put in here, the biggest takeaway is putting specific dates and specific hours and minutes as much as possible so that we know exactly what we are entering into your calendar forms. And again, you'll want to make sure that you adjust your IC calendars to reflect these changes. Now, we do have different contacts for our instructional hour calendars and the IC updates, so your student information system updates. So we put that contact information here for you. So if you have any questions with your IC calendars getting updated, or you need to reach out to your IC coordinator, their contact information is here. And then last is just how to submit this form. Again, the contact information for this form is more directed for your instructional hours calendars to get revised. So that contact information is here, and just a reminder to please keep it in Excel format. And just like all of our other forms, the contact information for this form specifically is going to be in the bottom right corner. We did try to make that consistent, so from form to form, you know who to reach out to, as they are similar but a little bit different. So that is all for both of these forms, whether it's the closure or the instructional hours calendar. I'll go ahead and show you how to save this and submit it. Similar to your instructional hours calendars, you're going to go File, Save As, and again, I'll go here on onto my desktop. And the closure form is formatted this way as well. It has all of this information pre-filled for you. All you have to do is replace the 3 X's at the front with your district or charter number. I'm gonna go ahead and put in 100. And once you are done with this, and otherwise that is all. If you need anything else, again, just another reminder that all of our contact information is in all of these forms and in the manuals. Let's go ahead and go back to our website. And just as one more reminder, all of these forms are under your calendar resources from the Public School Finance button on the State Department of Education's website. So if you need us, our staff information is here and you can always look us up. And feel free to reach out if you have questions. Have a great school year.